Hello, I'm Todd Hall, President and CEO of TrueLiant. As we mark our 70th anniversary in 2022, we reflect on a rich history that would not be possible without the support of the great city of Winston-Salem. From our humble beginnings in 1952 to the present, where we will soon serve over 300,000 members, hire our 1,000th employee, and exceed $4 billion in assets, to a future poised for continued growth. I am proud of the work we are doing together. TrueLiant is grateful for and remains committed to Winston-Salem and all of Forsyth County.
Welcome to the Greater Conversations podcast. I'm Deetra Miller, the Director of Member Relations and Engagement at Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. We'll use this platform to showcase our local businesses, our community, and their stories. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We are super excited to have in the studio with us today Brian DeAngelis, the President and General Manager of the Winston-Salem Dash, along with Amanda Weaver, the Director of Marketing and Communications. I'm using the same title that we have for Ethany Good, who happens to be Greater Winston-Salem Inc.'s Director of Marketing and Communications. She's here with us in the studio today, too. Super excited. And, of course, as always, we have our wonderful producer, Tim.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Fantastic.
Brian and Amanda, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's
This is
exciting.
awesome. It's a great studio.
Yeah, it is. Well, thank you. It is a great
Yeah.
studio. We're happy to be here with Tim.
Yeah, this is great.
Such and Such Media is awesome. By the way, you guys, it's in downtown Winston-Salem. If you would like to have a podcast as awesome as ours. So let's get right to it. We're talking about the Winston-Salem Dash today. So, Brian, you serve as the president and general manager. This isn't your first go-round with baseball, with management.
Yep.
Let's back it up a little bit and talk about your background, because you've been managing clubs from PA to Maryland and now in Winston-Salem.
That's right. Yeah. It wasn't on purpose, but I'm wearing a Ripken polo. I started with working for Cal Ripken in Maryland. So they have, at the time, they had 3 minor league baseball teams. They had 10 fields that were for camps, clinics, and tournaments. That's all youth baseball, amateur baseball. So that's kind of where I started in affiliated baseball. Prior to that was a prospect league team. And then I moved on to State College, which is actually on the campus of Penn State. So we had a Cardinals affiliate there. We also had Penn State baseball. So I had went from youth to college, professional, minor league, right? And then from there went to the AAA affiliate of the Philadelphia Phillies outside of Philly there. That was my most recent stop. I was there for 5 years, and we did a lot of great things there. Some of the things we're bringing down here to Winston-Salem, but that club up there is the largest team in minor league baseball.
Wow.
And so we wanted to bring, some of the promotional things we had done there, kind of the way we operate the business, and bring that down to Winston and, implement that here in such a great market and community.
That's awesome. What was it that drew you to baseball? Because when I was looking up all things Brian DeAngelis, I saw that you have been in sports management for so long. Did you play baseball as well?
Yeah, I played baseball for a little while. I had been involved in baseball forever. Basically, when I was young, my grandfather was great friends with Chuck Tanner, who managed the Pirates back through the 70s and had some of those championship teams. So I kind of grew up going to those games and with my grandfather and sitting around. We'd have breakfast every Sunday morning with Chuck Tanner and just hearing the stories of Roberto Clemente and Stargell and all these guys. And so it was always there. It was always a part of what I was doing. And it just so happened that a buddy of mine was doing an internship at Ripken, and I was working at a team at an internship capacity. And he's like, hey, there's a spot. Are you interested? And there was only one spot for this internship. And I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, I'm going to go for it. So I applied, went, did a full unpaid internship for a year, and just lost all my money to be able to work in baseball, as people do. And then was fortunate enough to get hired on full time after that.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, Amanda, let's talk about your baseball journey a little bit. Or is it more of a marketing journey?
It's definitely more of a marketing journey. I grew up in Austin, actually like Round Rock, which is about 30 minutes north of Austin, Texas. And I'm very fortunate I grew up actually around a AAA affiliate of the Rangers. Wow. They also for a second were affiliate of the Astros, but now they're back with the Rangers. But very fortunate to be in that world and in that environment. So I grew up in the stadium and enjoying games, and have been involved with baseball my whole life. I have family friends that played at the major league level, and so very exciting. But didn't actually work in sports until I moved to the Dash. My very first job in sports was actually as a suite server at my hometown team, and not actually like in the front office. Knew I wanted to be involved in sports, went to Texas State, majored in public relations with a minor in sports psychology.
Wow.
And then actually got an internship at a tech company and learned the ways of marketing out of a tech company, and then transitioned over into baseball. And so just learned the marketing stuff and then figured out how to market baseball instead.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. So I have a question for both of you, really, because a lot of times you see kids that fall in love with a sport, whether it's baseball or basketball or football, but obviously, looking at the two of you, there are other careers in sports that you can fall in love with. So for any parent that may be sharing this with their children, what advice would you give to them in regard to looking at other things outside of being a part of the roster of a baseball club?
Yeah, I think that most people that are in our industry, they played at some level. And then when that ended, they started to think, well, how can I still be around this game? And there's a lot of ways to do it. You can go on the player ops side, getting scouting and video and all that kind of stuff. And that's if you want to be player ops, that's your in. So you're going to do a lot of extremely long hours, very low pay jobs that are just going to get you extremely familiar with that side of the game. And then you can progress and stay with that. And that's what most people think. Like when you work in sports, they're like, well, you know, I work with the players, I work with the team, whatever. That's the player ops side. The other side is the business side. And so I'd encourage a lot of people to go to either a sport management program or a business school and start to understand, well, listen, we're talking about sports, but they're businesses. That's what they are, right? There wouldn't be the New York Yankees if they didn't make any money. So there's that avenue. And there's a lot of things you can do just like any business. You can be in marketing like Amanda is, or you can be in sales. That's kind of the way I made my way up, or operations, stadium operations, right? You can just learn how to run a facility well and staff and hire and all those things. So, I mean, it's truly just a business, and it just happens to be that our product is a sport. So there's really those two avenues you can take to look, and you can make your way in either one, really. So
That's awesome. What about you? What advice would you give?
I grew up, I obviously did not play baseball. Bat and ball sports were really not my forte, but I did dance and track and some of these other things. And so there's also just a level of understanding, like, unless your job really is to watch the game, there's not a lot of game watching happening. So if you get into a sport that you're like, I know some things about this, but not all of the things, that's okay. I don't know all of the absolute ins and outs of lacrosse per se, but you can still figure out how to do your job in that world. But yeah, there is a way of to echo, like, being involved, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with players, but on the other side of it is actually really fun and exciting and creative and all of the things. So,
Well, that's excellent. And, you know, the Winston-Salem Dash is kind of a big deal here in Winston-Salem. And you mentioned an internship that really changed things for you, Brian. Does the Winston-Salem Dash happen to offer any internships?
all the time.
Yeah.
So we have game day internships for even high schoolers. If you want to figure it out in high school before you go to college, which I would recommend, because for me, I had no idea what I want to do in high school, and still don't to some extent. But, you know, that's a great way to be like, okay, you know, I did an accounting internship was one thing I did, and I realized very quickly, okay, this is a necessary skill, but I do not like this. And so let me find my next thing that I want to do, right? And so then I started doing different internships and started figuring those things out. And so I'd recommend starting with that. And, you know, she mentioned she was a suite server. I mean, that's a paid job. So some advantages to that. You're not in the front office as much, but you're getting paid and you're still around the game and you understand what's happening. And then we go all the way up through, you know, all through college, and then college seniors that we bring them in for internships. And whether it's in the sales office or you're working in marketing or stadium ops or even field maintenance, whatever it is, we have internships for those as well. And that's the best way if you're looking to get any job. I'd recommend doing that. I have to say, because I always do say, if you're looking to get into sports, or for that matter, really most businesses, if you look at the composition of our team, about 50% of them are revenue generators. So if you don't know how to sell or you don't even know what that means, I'd at least explore it, because if you're dead set on getting into sports, you want to have as many advantages and opportunities as you possibly can. So if you can justify your expense, meaning being an employee, offsetting by revenue, you get into sales, you have a little better chance of getting in at least. And sports is all about just getting in the door. If you can get in somewhere, it's a small enough world that then all of a sudden you can transition that into something bigger. So if you want to work for the Yankees, you're dead set on it, right? Or the White Sox in our case, whatever. Well, just get into the sport. Just figure out a way to get some job anywhere, and you can work towards that, because the odds that the Yankees are going to call you back is just very low.
Wow. Okay. I need to double back a little bit, because we're talking about all fun things presently with the Dash, and we're going to talk about some things you guys have coming up too. But let's talk about the history of the Dash a little bit. So from what I understand, since 1945, the Dash has been part of the Carolina League, and they have had like at least a half a dozen names over the years, from the Twins to the Cardinals to the Redbirds, Red Sox, Spirits, Warthogs, and now the Dash. What are some other fun facts that folks may not know about the history of the Dash?
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
What were
Big
the
time
top
on the
3
spot.
things that surprised you about the Dash?
Yeah, so I think that one that stands out to me for sure, and there's a lot of teams that kind of have this. You look at the teams, and when you're around for that long, you're bound to have some players that did something, whether they were on one of those teams or they came here and played against one of those. So one of the ones I found was actually that Hank Aaron actually signed his first contract in the city of Winston.
Stop it.
Yeah, so that's kind of like one of those moments in history. Everybody talks about like Jackie Robinson, they talk about like whatever, and it's like, well, that's a pretty monumental one as well, and that was here, and I feel like it doesn't really get talked about, which is strange to me. So that was big. But if you just walk around the concourse level, and I get sometimes it can be easy to miss because there's so many people and things going on, whatever. But we actually have photos and a quick background of all the players that were like of note that you'd recognize. So when you see like Jamie Moyer or like any of these players that are up there, it's like, well, that's because we're not just Jamie Moyer fans. Like there was some connection to one of those teams you just mentioned at whatever era it was. And so that was a huge piece that I love, and that's kind of a lot of pieces in one. But then another one that was kind of a large odd thing that occurred was that you mentioned the Twins was one of those names. Well, there's actually some very serious conversations, not as far back as you would think, about bringing an MLB franchise here and kind of splitting it within the triad, and it was going to be the Twins. So a lot of times what will happen is these big league teams, when they don't get a stadium deal or a media deal or whatever they want, well, that means in some capacity we're forced into maybe moving. And so when they start to move, they explore different options, and then they narrow it down to 3. They find ownership groups and funding and all that kind of stuff. And so this was a very viable option for them that had more legs. There's kind of like phases where I know like this is real, this is not real. So Nashville right now, as an example, has a very strong case to bring an MLB team to Nashville. That was being said about Winston-Salem 20, 30 years ago.
It was 20 years ago.
20 years ago?
Because my family's in construction.
Yeah.
It was. And we were wanting it to pass because we knew we'd probably get the contract
Yeah.
for the stadium.
Yeah.
And we were disappointed when it fell through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I can only imagine. You know, Hank Aaron was here when we broke ground for the new stadium.
Yes.
Really?
Yep. We have pictures of him at like scooping dirt at the new stadium.
That's
And
awesome.
Another fun fact about that was that it was like the night prior or 2 nights prior, something like that. He had like fallen and I think broke. I'm pretty sure broke a leg.
Yes.
And was going to have to cancel, and found a way, whatever, moved like a surgery or a cast setting or something, moved it to be there. So flew in, was in a wheelchair the whole thing, kind of like got up to do the picture and got back down and then sent back to Atlanta or whatever. And then that's what happened. So like that photo, you would never know looking at it or whatever, but like he's
Wow.
They like wheeled him
In a
up,
lot of
sat him in the
pain.
chair.
yeah.
He like got up for half a second to do his speech and scoop cut. And then he said,
Wow.
"See y'all later."
It's an old player mentality.
That's
You can play hurt or injured.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Do you have a favorite piece of history?
I stole yours, son.
Yes, Hank Aaron's my guy.
Yeah.
No, I feel very fortunate. One, our stadium is beautiful, but it's also very fun to know like people have been fans for so long, and they're like, "Oh, I remember when we were back at Ernie Shore," and so now it has transitioned into where Wake plays baseball. But it was a very like fun, and people bring it up all the time, like, oh, I remember when it was Ernie Shore and y'all were the Spirits or y'all were the Warthogs. And so we still hold on to that and play as the Warthogs every Wednesday. And so it's very fun to have kind of like a nice little memento back to Ernie Shore, because I have, you know, like older family friends here now, or like friends that are like, oh, we used to go when I was a kid. And I was like, I was in Texas. I wish I knew, but it sounds great.
Well, you're here now, which is great. And I love how you guys bring together the community for so many different things at the stadium. Talk about some of the things that you've got coming up, especially 336 Day.
Yeah, so it's crazy to think we only have 3 homestands left, which to us is like, seems like no time, but we end September 11th. So between now and then, we have 18 games. And in those 18 games, we have a lot of stuff going on. I was just meeting with our promotions entertainment team earlier and figuring out, you know, because there's a lot that goes into each of those nights. It's very easy to just have a game and kind of hit rinse and repeat and just do the same thing. So when you change it 5 nights in a row, like what we're doing this upcoming homestand, basically, it's challenging. So we go like basically to the Warthogs, where we're going to be on Wednesday. Then we're going to have Tyler's amazing balancing act, who's a guy that he can balance anything in the world. I mean, ladders, bicycles, 10 beers, like on his face, he's balancing these things, right?
Oh my goodness.
So he's a show. He just goes all through the stands, and he'll just grab something that you have, or just
Sunglasses.
walk up next to you and grab a bicycle, and right above your head, just hold this thing. It's a crazy thing to see. He's done the NFL, all kinds of stuff. Leading right then into Friday, which is probably one of the biggest nights of the entire year, which is going to be the Black Panther night. So we have a Marvel night. We actually partnered with Marvel officially.
Stop it.
They help us create the jerseys. All their illustrators have made new logos. The Black Panther is actually going to be there. The official Marvel Black Panther is going to be there for photos and all this kind of stuff. So they gave us all the videos to play, all this, like, it's a full-blown partnership we have now with Marvel for the next 5 years.
Amanda, that must be a marketing dream.
It's actually the best thing in the whole world. It's also really great. Our graphic designer, they give us all of these things for us to just absolutely take advantage of. And so our graphic designer probably is in a dream too, because it's a lot of like pre-done, so he doesn't have to work as hard to make it happen. But it's so great. And so from like the marketing perspective, it's like, it almost does the work for you, because everyone knows who Black Panther is and everyone knows all these things. So it's like all we have to do is say like, hey, he's going to be here and you should get your tickets. And it kind of falls into place. There is work behind it, but there's a lot of like great benefit for us to have this awesome partnership with Marvel. They've gone above and beyond to make this happen for not just us, but for a bunch of teams across minor league baseball. So very fun.
That's exciting.
And you mentioned 336. There's several still out of these 18, but 336, obviously, if nobody hadn't put it together, it's our area code, so hopefully you know. But we're playing a game. We're playing a game at 3:36 p.m. as well, so it's a little chance for you to get out of the office a little early, come grab a couple drinks, and just celebrate as a community. We have a couple things that are truly still a surprise that have not been released, and mostly because the special guest we're bringing doesn't know that this is happening. So otherwise, I'd love to, maybe offline I'll share some details, but we are doing some things to make sure, like one of the things that was important to me was like, we have to make this a large community effort. And what does that mean? And that means something different to a lot of different people. So let's do all of them, right? This should replicate the community in one game. And then how do we produce that? How do we represent that? And that's something I want to do season long, which is why we've done some of the things, like we've done salsa, because the Hispanic community can now come and look and say, like, this does represent us, and this is my team in my city. We're doing the 9, so that's basically goes back to the Negro Leagues is where it started. But right now, we're going to create our own brand, and that way people in the Black community can come and say, this represents me. This is my team. This makes sense to me. And so that everybody season long can look at the Winston-Salem Dash and be like, no, this is my home. Like, this is our team. We get behind this. We helped create this in a lot of sense. Like, we don't create all this stuff. We get help from the community, right? So 336 is kind of, hopefully for me, going to be the first step in doing that and saying, okay, here we all are. Let's do what that means to Winston, and we're going to blow this thing out, whatever that means for us. And then we're going to continue to grow that so it's represented every single day from all the games we have moving forward. So I'm excited for it.
I love that. Well, I can't wait for it. There's so many exciting things happening.
Oh, yeah.
And Ethany, since you're here with us, and since you grew up in
Absolutely.
Pull that to you, please.
I spent many a summer night, watching Spirits games, watching Warthogs games, and now taking my daughter to see Dash games. But I'd have to say one of my favorite memories was I was involved in the community-wide effort during the construction of Salem Parkway, and Truist Stadium hosted a really special event in February of 2020 when the highway was officially opened, in which the community was allowed prior to the road opening to go and take a stroll along Salem Parkway before it opened, which was an incredible experience, and the whole entire community was just waiting for that road to be finished and the beautiful result of what it is now. So that was a special memory too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I actually moved here like right after it opened, and I was like, dang it, I missed the event. I was so sad because obviously now there's cars on it constantly. If you walked across it, it's immediate squish. But it was so fun, and of course, I got to see all of those pictures. They're like in our like drive, and so it's like a fun thing. Every now and then it like pops up as like a memory in my because I run off our social, it pops up, and so it's a fun one to like look back on.
The official announcement of the opening date happened on my birthday, January 31st. So
Yeah, we know.
that was a special birthday.
Oh, we did it on
special
purpose.
birthday present for me.
We planned it from afar, and before
exactly.
we even knew who you were.
There you go. So I'm so glad you're so connected in such intimate ways with the people of Winston-Salem. Because you're both kind of new here, I'm curious to know, what is your favorite thing about Winston-Salem so far? Whether it's a place to go, of course, Dash games. But besides
Brian meets Spot. Spot meet Brian.
Yeah. You took mine. I was definitely going to say Dash games. That's good. But so for me, I think we have different answers here. So for me, I love I'll call it the culture here, because being from the Northeast is different for a lot of ways, and the culture down here is so much more inviting and friendly and relaxed and livable, that it changes everything. And I have a family that I brought down here as well, so that was important to us. And so putting one specific place is tough, because everywhere that you go, that exists. So you get to like we have lakes up north, and but like when you go to these places, it's now so different, where it's just relaxed and enjoyable. Whereas, normally if I'm going to a lake up in Philly or whatever, I'm getting cussed out or beeped at or whatever's going on, right? It's like, well, you don't have that anymore, right? So now it's great. But I will say barbecue also, because we do not have barbecue up there. They try. Well, I don't know if they try, but they serve it, and when I had it down here, I'm like, wow, this is a different food group entirely. So I'll put on a couple pounds, but we'll work on that in the off season.
It's season. That's an off season project.
I have an excuse. Yeah.
Well, I've seen like 5Ks go around the concourse, so that you can get in some time.
Oh yeah, running stairs and everything. Yep.
Yeah.
I kind of have a sentiment. So my hometown reminds me a lot of Winston. Really? Round Rock, since I have been growing up, has slowly started to become very much Austin, and they've all just kind of bled together. So it's become way more like city, and so Winston now reminds me of how my hometown felt as a kid. It's a little slower. There's a lot less traffic. As a kid, there was not traffic. As an adult, when I go home and visit my family, I'm like, oh my gosh. We also have every restaurant you could ever want in Austin. I'm like, it's overwhelming, all of the choices. There's not as many mom and pop as there used to be. And so I enjoy that Winston is still small, per se, but there is mom and pop restaurants, and there is the place where you feel like when you walk in, it is like, I know the people who come here, and I know the people who work in this place, and there's like obviously a sense of community everywhere you go. And so that is something that, like, when I came out here to even just apply to this job and interview and all the things, that like it just felt very like instead of like, oh, okay, like there's a lot happening here. It just felt very like calm and peaceful and all the things. And so as I guess, almost 30.
No.
I just really thought about how old I was. I'm 27. And I really just thought about what that actually means. I'm closer to 30 than I am to 18 now. Wow.
Much closer. Yeah.
Much closer.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm closer to 30 than I am 18 as well.
So we're all in that boat. Yeah.
I will be 29 forever, I've decided just now. But as someone who is just like, on their own, when I moved to Winston, I knew nobody. Even like at my job, I had no idea. And so it's been nice to be in a place where like you feel, like Brian said, welcomed, and it just reminded me of home. And so that's my little sentimental part of Winston.
Aww.
So
thank you, guys. That is a great sell for Winston-Salem for anybody that's looking to come here, bring their young family or retired family to the area. And we've got so much to do, including awesome baseball games.
Exactly.
So is there anything that we didn't touch on you'd like to talk about today?
the barbecue here is not as good as Texas. I just got to throw it out
here
there.
we go.
Oh,
No, she didn't.
no. It's a whole different kind of barbecue.
It is. I will say it is so completely different. So I can't really say that it's like not good. We get into this as a staff probably every other week because they try to tell me, they're like, oh, let's go get barbecue. I'm like, it's not. It's pulled pork. And in Texas, barbecue is like smoked brisket, smoked sausage. It's all about the burn ends. Is a chopped beef sandwich is like a brisket sandwich. That amazing. My own personal opinion, but
for those who didn't see that, that's the chef's kiss.
That is my own personal opinion. I'll stand by it until I die. It's the hill I will die on. But our staff that are like native to North Carolina are like, it is the same. Barbecue is barbecue. I'm like, but it's not.
Yeah, so ask the people in Kansas City or Memphis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's like four different kinds.
4 different kinds in this country that are. You have Lexington style, Eastern style, Carolina. All that's the same pulled pork. You have the Texas. You have the Memphis, and then the Kansas City.
And a lot of it is based on the sauce base. So like ketchup, mustard, vinegar. All that. Anyway.
So since we have a culinary critic here, Tim,
so
what's your favorite barbecue joint in Winston? And then
let's properly introduce the other hat that Tim has.
I am the man who ate the town.
There you go.
I love this.
So if I'm picking absolute favorite barbecue joint, my go-to, someone says, let's go have barbecue. We had to do without them for 2 years.
Mine's the same.
Mr. Barbecue is the way to go. Yeah.
That's the first place I ate in Winston, by the way. It really is.
And there's so much more than barbecue. I was telling someone just this morning that I think they actually have, and I know there's other places around town that do, they have the best fried chicken sandwich in town.
I had that as well.
Yeah.
And people thought I was crazy. And there's some good fried chicken sandwiches here, by the way, as well.
Yes.
I love the Bossy Beulah's, and the Timmy's has a good one, too, and all that. But it's really
Can't wait till
solid.
Slappy's comes back. Yeah. But yeah, Mr. Barbecue, to me, the man who ate to town, this is an endorsement from the man who ate to town. Mr. Barbecue has the best fried chicken sandwich in town. Yeah. And it's huge.
It sounds like that's where I'm going to go for lunch. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other recommendations you need, you
I
just ask.
honestly have only been to, mostly because I just haven't gone. I haven't been to Mr. Barbecue yet, but I've been to Camel City and I've been to Little Richard's, and those are the only two
and
barbecue
both are
places.
fantastic.
I personally love Little Richard's, but it's because I have an affinity for their smoked wings.
Yeah.
With their like rub.
Yeah.
Delish.
Yeah.
But now I'm gonna go get a chicken sandwich from Mr. Barbecue, probably for lunch.
It's good.
Yeah.
Mine, I guess, to answer your question too, the only one we didn't touch on that I'm most excited about might have something to do with that I have a 4-year-old son. But on September 11th, we are doing a Touch-A-Truck. And if you haven't seen one of those or know what it is, just watch my son when he shows up and sees this and watch his mind explode. Because it's just, I mean, we're going to have everything. And it's your standard, the police car and, fire truck and ambulance, of course. Then we're going to have race cars and cranes and bulldozers. We're working on getting a tank. I have to have a tank because you have to.
Because we have to.
Yeah, you have to.
Welcome to the Dash.
So, yeah, as many as possible, because I also know my 4-year-old son, where as cool as one of those things is, it's cool for about 7 seconds, and then we're on to the next one.
Right,
So
right.
the more the better. So that's going to be going on as a part of the game. It's not its own event. So we're going to have them not only in the parking lot and everywhere as you're walking in, and you can see them all through there, but also along the concourse. So just during the game, because, you know, again, when we need a potty break or we need whatever, we got to get up. Well, we got cars and trucks on the concourse too. You can go and check them out while you're in line for, you know, a beer or whatever it is. So that's going to be a really cool one that I'm excited for. Yeah.
I'm 27. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'll probably be
Hey,
climbing
that's
on
almost
these.
30, I hear.
That's almost 30, yeah. I'm almost 30 years old, and let me tell you, I'm excited for this touch a truck, mostly because I just think that it's like so cool to have so many things.
Oh, yeah. It's overload, but it's good.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. And we can't wait to do all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, Amanda, thank you so much for being here today. And for the folks listening, to learn more about the Dash or to buy tickets or to find out what else is on the schedule, where do they need to go?
You can go to wsdash.com or any of our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. TikTok's a really fun one for us personally. If you want to follow us on TikTok, you totally should.
Excellent, excellent.
All the medias.
All the socials, we're on them.
All
but
the socials.
wsdash.com for tickets.
Perfect. Everyone listening, check them out. See you soon. We know you enjoyed this podcast today, so join us for the next episode of Greater Conversations. By the way, you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Be sure to smash that subscribe button. Also, be sure to visit our website at winstonsalem.com. The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our sponsors, distributors, or hosting companies. This podcast is copyrighted and cannot be reproduced without expressed written consent of Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. or your toast.